What's the challenge? Now, in the past, what's the challenge? What's the struggle? Or this is challenge, or I'm struggling with this. I've bought into that. And I think by actually believing that it's a challenge, you make it one. Now, certainly in the past, even the distant past, I see the social conditioning involved with these stories. What your mum and dad tell you is hard. You know, life's hard, son. You've got to buckle down. You've got to knuckle down. Or, you know, oh, I'm struggling with this, struggling with that. Or, you know, other people around you say it can't be done. But really, all that is their own beliefs put on you, and you just accept them, especially when you're younger. I even caught myself a while ago, even saying to my son, you know, son, life's hard. And I thought, that's absolute bullshit. That's just a story that someone else has told me. And I really, really work on not saying these things to Sam, because when I do, I'm then putting my belief onto him. That's not necessarily true. And it's not necessarily true for me either. I've just chose to believe it. So every time I feel the word challenge or struggle, or that feeling that I associate with challenge and struggle coming up, I actually start looking inside. Because there's a different real reason. I want the truth, because it ain't the truth. It's just a story I've chose to believe in. Usually when I've leant in and seen, okay, what is the story here? It's not about challenge, it's not about struggle, it's not about hardship. It's about guilt. It's about shame, it's about unworthiness, that feeling that you can't do something, so we build a story around it why you can't do it. Oh, it's too challenging. Oh, I struggle with that, I'm not going to do it. Oh yeah, that's too hard. But the more I've studied myself, the more I've studied other people, the more I've studied, you know, read, experienced, I believe that those are just stories. And it usually just comes down to the fact that we're too afraid to be our true selves. Because we're afraid to be judged, to be excluded. Because that's what judgment really is, it's exclusion. You don't want to be excluded from a group. We're hardwired as a human, or as a species, as a mammal, our communities, we're hardwired in our brains to be part of something. It's part of survival. Because at the end of the day, humans or any other species are there to survive, and we're hardwired to do so any which way. So when it comes down to the fact that we feel like we're going to be excluded, we then try and fit in by trying to be somebody else. We forget who we really are in case we are rejected or excluded. So this then happens, the fact that we start being too afraid to show who we really are, trying to show our true feelings. We try and fit in by people pleasing. I've done that myself. I've said it in many videos in the past. I found myself in a way where you're doing stuff for other people before yourself. That never works, because you start getting resentful. When you make any kind of sacrifice or compromise, that's what happens. So when it comes down to this whole story around and challenging and being challenged and struggle, and really it comes down to, you know, being afraid of who you are and trying to fit in, then we get screwed up. Now, it can happen any time, and sometimes, you know, even I on my journey now, there'll be some days, which have been the last few days, which have been quite, I was going to say quite challenging. You see, the story came up. It's not about challenge, it's about the same stuff came up as before. I'm being tested to see if I am still working on myself. Am I going to buy into that this time, or am I going to choose a different way, a different story that actually serves me? And I get the fact that emotions come into it and you can feel shit. I've been there. But I also know that only way to move forwards is not to be an amateur. And what I mean by that is amateurs will find excuses. Or they'll just do it because, you know, amateurs, they don't have to turn up every day. It's sort of almost like a hobby. I don't want to be like that. At my business, I don't want my business to be like that. I don't want myself to be that. I want to be a professional, because I know one thing about professionals, and this is what an author called Stephen Pressfield talked about in The War of Art, is professionals turn up despite how they feel, despite what they feel is holding them back or pushing against them, that resistance. They turn up and do the work regardless. And it can feel tough, but really it's just the resistance pushing against. And that's, we're just pushing against them old stories that we choose to believe in, choose to hold. And this is when you get to break through, to get to move forwards. To get to move forwards despite how you feel. Despite those old stories coming up, because they do and they will. They'll continue to until you overcome and keep moving forwards. And I'm very careful to choose my words because language is very often misused. And I see it as a part of our being in control of us, as opposed to the other way around. Because we use words that are quite damning in cases, like hardship, challenge, struggle. That keeps us down. Don't allow that to happen. Choose where you want your life to go and keep going at it. And whatever rises up, lean in. It's never how you think it's going to be. There's always an underlying story. Be the professional. Move forwards. Drop the challenge. And accept who you really are. Till tomorrow. See you later.